In the distant future, humanity had reached new heights, conquering the stars and expanding across the galaxy. Yet, despite their technological advancements, there was one thing that Earth's leaders had decided was no longer needed. The old ways of war, the age of the traditional soldier, with simple weapons and unenhanced bodies, had passed. Earth's military forces were now entirely reliant on cutting-edge technologies, bio-enhanced soldiers, and AI-driven war machines. To the officials in charge, anything less was obsolete. Captain Alex Mercer, a seasoned veteran of the old military, stood in front of a giant holographic screen. The words "obsolete forces" flashed in bold letters. The screen displayed a list of soldiers, including Alex's name, with the message, "Retirement mandatory." A wave of frustration washed over Alex as he stared at the message. His squad had served for decades, defending Earth and its colonies. They had fought in countless battles, relying on experience, strategy, and old-school combat skills. Now their efforts were considered outdated, their methods useless against the galaxy's new high-tech enemies. The new generation of war machines, powered by artificial intelligence, were seen as the future of military power, leaving no place for humans like Alex. His team had been called back from deployment only to receive orders to retire. No more missions, no more fighting. The younger, enhanced soldiers, with their powerful biotech upgrades, were the future. Alex's team, made up of men and women who had once been the best of the best, were now deemed irrelevant. Just a few more years, Alex muttered to himself, frustration creeping into his voice. His mind wandered back to the days when their squad had been feared across the stars. They were the ones other forces feared to face in battle, known for their unconventional tactics and unmatched skill. But now, with the rise of AI-driven warfare, they had been reduced to nothing more than obsolete relics. He turned away from the hologram and glanced at his team. They, too, were tired, their faces a mixture of anger and resignation. Private Rachel Banks, always sharp and ready for action, was sitting with her arms crossed, her eyes burning with a quiet fury. Sergeant Jacob Trent, a former tank commander, paced back and forth, clearly agitated. Even Lieutenant Lisa Carter, usually the calm and composed leader, seemed lost in thought. Alex had led them through the toughest battles, from the first alien skirmishes to the devastating wars on distant planets. They were a team. But the world around them had changed. The war machines had arrived, and with them came the idea that human soldiers were no longer needed. The door slid open, and General Samuel Harris entered the room. His face was a mask of professionalism, but Alex could see the flicker of regret in his eyes. "Captain Mercer," Harris began, "it's not that you or your team aren't skilled. It's just that, well, the new era of warfare demands more than what you can provide." Alex looked up, meeting the general's eyes. "More?" he asked, his voice cold. "You mean machines that follow orders without understanding what's at stake. A system that can't adapt when things go wrong." Harris hesitated but nodded. "The future is AI. We need to move forward." Alex's fist clenched. He knew what was coming. They were no longer soldiers. They were just old tools, thrown aside and forgotten. "We'll be ready," Alex said, his voice low. "You'll see." The general didn't respond. Instead, he simply turned and walked out of the room. Alex's team exchanged silent glances. They didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. Earth had always been a peaceful planet, surrounded by distant stars and unknown dangers. But peace was fragile. The Scifi, a fierce alien race, had been watching humanity for years. Their advanced technology and ruthless warriors had made them one of the most feared species in the galaxy. Yet, no one on Earth had expected an invasion. The military had been focused on the latest war machines and artificial intelligence, never considering the threat of a powerful alien force. The Scifi struck without warning. It started with a surprise attack on Earth's outer colonies. In mere hours, Their vast fleet of ships arrived, sending shockwaves through the galaxy. The AI-driven defenses Earth had trusted for decades were useless against the sheer power and cunning of the Scifi. Despite their advanced weapons and tech, humanity was caught off guard. The government tried to respond quickly, but it was too late. Earth's colonies were falling, one by one. The news spread fast, and panic followed. There was no time to prepare, no time to retreat. Captain Alex Mercer sat in the war room with his team, watching the battle unfold on a large holographic display. The screens flickered, showing images of Scifi ships ripping through Earth's defenses. Their alien technology was far beyond anything Earth had encountered before. Earth's AI systems, once considered the backbone of its military, couldn't keep up. They malfunctioned under the pressure, unable to counter the Scifi's brilliant tactics. Alex's hand clenched into a fist. He had been dismissed just days before. Now, the planet was under attack, and the high-tech forces that had replaced him were struggling. It was clear the new age of warfare was failing. "Damn it," Rachel Banks muttered under her breath as she watched the destruction unfold. "This is a nightmare. We should have never let our guard down," Alex said quietly, his eyes never leaving the screen. "They've been waiting for this moment." "Who could have predicted this?" Trent asked, his voice sharp. "We were told the future was in AI, in machines. We got the best tech in the galaxy. How did they break through so easily?" Alex stood up, his face hardening with determination. "Because we've forgotten how to fight." For a moment, there was silence. They all knew what he meant. The military's focus had been on machines, AI, and the idea of perfect technology. They had neglected the one thing they still had: human skill, human strategy. It was time to fight back the only way they knew how. "We need to get to Earth's capital," Alex said, turning to his team. "We need to find a way to get Earth's leaders on the same page and make them understand. We can't rely on AI to fight for us anymore. It's time for the old ways." "But we're retired, Alex," Lisa Carter said, her voice calm but concerned. "We're not part of the active military anymore. We don't have the clearance to do anything." "We're going to make them listen," Alex replied firmly. "I know we're considered obsolete, but we still have a role to play. We're not done yet. Not by a long shot." Without waiting for any more questions, Alex led his team to the command center. They had a job to do, and this time they would show the world that human resilience and adaptability were not something that could be replaced by machines. As they prepared to leave, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the Scifi were only the beginning. There was something larger at play, something darker. The galaxy had underestimated humanity's strength, but now the time had come to prove them wrong. The fight was just beginning. The sound of alarms blared through the underground command center, echoing in the narrow hallways. Soldiers scrambled to their posts, moving with practiced efficiency, but their eyes betrayed their fear. The Scifi were no longer just attacking the colonies. Now, they were targeting Earth itself. Alex Mercer's team stood together in a small briefing room, their eyes fixed on the large screen that displayed the current battlefront. The planet's defenses were crumbling. Waves of alien ships were descending on Earth's cities, their powerful weapons ripping through the atmosphere, causing widespread destruction. Alex had always trusted in the power of human strategy, but looking at the chaos unfolding, even he felt the weight of doubt pressing down. The Scifi were not only technologically superior, they were smart. They knew how to exploit weaknesses, how to outmaneuver even the best forces Earth could throw at them. And the AI-driven defenses that were supposed to be humanity's greatest strength. They were overwhelmed. "Time to make our move," Alex said, breaking the tense silence. He looked at his team: Rachel, Trent, Lisa, and the others. "We've got one chance to hit back. We can't win this war by playing it safe." "We'll be outnumbered," Rachel pointed out, her voice steady but firm. "The Scifi have more ships, more weapons. How do we even begin to fight them?" "We fight like we always have," Alex replied. "We outsmart them. It's what we've always done. They may have better tech, but they don't have what we do. Experience, creativity, the human edge." Trent cracked his knuckles, a slight grin tugging at his lips. "Old school tactics, huh? I like it. Time to give them a taste of what they didn't see coming." Alex nodded. "Exactly. We don't need to match their power. We need to outthink them." The team gathered their gear, old-fashioned weapons, rifles, grenades, and experimental tech they'd salvaged from the military's forgotten stockpiles. These weren't the sleek, efficient machines the military had used in the past. These were heavier, more cumbersome, but they had one thing the new tech didn't: unpredictability. They were ready. The team boarded an old transport shuttle, designed for short-range missions. It was no match for the Scifi's high-speed cruisers, but it would have to do. The shuttle's engines roared to life as they took off, heading straight for the heart of the Scifi assault, an alien battleship currently orbiting Earth. "Can we get through their defenses?" Lisa asked as she checked the shuttle's systems. "We'll find a way," Alex said, his voice calm but determined. "We've got the element of surprise. They won't be expecting a direct assault like this." The shuttle hurtled through the atmosphere, dodging fire from the enemy fleet. Alex's heart pounded in his chest, but he pushed the nerves aside. This was the only way to turn the tide. If they could get to the heart of the Scifi fleet, they could disrupt their command and create chaos in the enemy ranks. As the shuttle approached the alien battleship, the ground shook beneath them. The massive craft loomed in front of them, its dark, angular shape a symbol of overwhelming power. But Alex didn't flinch. "Brace for impact," he shouted as the shuttle made its final approach. They were going to land inside the belly of the beast. With a violent jolt, the shuttle crashed onto the battleship's landing bay. The team immediately disembarked, weapons in hand, ready for what awaited them. The metallic door slid open with a hiss, and the team rushed out, finding themselves in the heart of the alien vessel. The air was thick with the smell of burning metal, and the walls were lined with strange, glowing symbols that seemed to pulse with an eerie energy. "Stay sharp," Alex whispered. "We're not just fighting for Earth now. We're fighting for humanity's future." With one final nod, they charged forward, ready to face the unknown. Their mission was clear: disrupt the Scifi's command center, cripple their fleet, and show the galaxy that humanity still had a fight left in them. The air inside the alien battleship was thick with tension. Every corner was dark, the only light coming from the eerie glow of the Scifi's technology. Alex Mercer led his team through the narrow hallways, their footsteps echoing on the metal floor. The mission was simple: reach the command center, sabotage the enemy's control systems, and create enough chaos to disrupt the invasion. But nothing about this was simple. They had infiltrated the heart of the enemy's flagship. The Scifi had been caught off guard, but their ships were quickly adapting to the human tactics. Alex knew that this was their only chance to strike before the Scifi got their bearings. They had to move quickly, or Earth would be lost. "Keep your eyes peeled," Alex whispered. "We're not alone in here." Rachel, always alert, gave a short nod. "I don't like this place. Too quiet." "Quiet is bad," Trent added, checking his weapon. "That's when they strike." As they moved deeper into the ship, the team felt the weight of their situation. They were small and vulnerable compared to the massive Scifi force. But they also had something that the aliens didn't: unpredictability and the ability to think on their feet. They were soldiers, but more importantly, they were humans, capable of outsmarting and outlasting their enemies. The silence of the alien ship was broken by a distant hum. The sound grew louder, and the team braced themselves. Ahead, a group of Scifi soldiers appeared, their sleek black armor reflecting the dim lights. The aliens moved with eerie precision, but Alex's team didn't hesitate. They had trained for moments like this. "Move," Alex ordered, and his team rushed into action. Rachel, the quickest of them all, was the first to fire, hitting one of the Scifi soldiers square in the chest. The alien collapsed with a violent jerk, but there were more behind it. The battle was brief but intense. Human soldiers fought with raw determination, relying on their speed, instincts, and years of experience. They knew how to improvise, how to adapt, while the Scifi, with all their advanced technology, had a rigid approach to combat. In a matter of minutes, the team had cleared the area, but the noise would surely attract more Scifi soldiers. They didn't have much time. Alex motioned for the team to continue. The command center wasn't far now. They could see the door ahead, guarded by even more heavily armed aliens. The plan was simple: get in, disable the main control systems, and escape before the Scifi could react. But simple plans often went wrong in the heat of battle. Lisa Carter, the team's strategist, pulled out a small device from her pack. "This will jam their communications for a few minutes. We need to make the most of it." Alex nodded, looking at his team one last time before they moved into position. They were a far cry from the polished, bio-enhanced soldiers of the new military. But in this moment, Alex could feel it. This was their strength, their humanity. The door to the command center slid open with a hiss, revealing a room filled with alien consoles and glowing holographic interfaces. At the far end of the room stood the Scifi leader, its glowing eyes locked on them. It didn't speak, but Alex could feel its presence, its awareness. The alien knew who they were. "Now," Alex shouted, and Lisa hit the jammer button. The alien consoles flickered, and chaos erupted. The Scifi scrambled to regain control, but it was too late. Alex and his team stormed in, firing at anything that moved. They didn't wait to see if the Scifi could adapt. This was their moment to act. In the middle of the firefight, Alex realized something. They were making a difference. This wasn't just another mission. This was the moment the legend began. The moment humanity, against all odds, proved that they could stand tall in the face of overwhelming odds. With one last blast, the control systems exploded, sending shockwaves through the ship. The Scifi's communications were down, their control systems shattered. Alex didn't pause to celebrate. They had done what they came here to do, but they still had a long way to go. The battle for Earth was far from over. But for the first time in a long while, Alex believed that humanity, and not the machines, would be The explosion echoed through the alien battleship, rattling the walls and sending a shockwave through the entire structure. Alex Mercer and his team didn't wait for the dust to settle. They quickly moved into the chaos they had created, weaving through the debris and disabled systems. The enemy was disoriented, their control over the ship broken, but the fight was far from over. There were still Scifi soldiers, and the threat of retaliation was very real. Alex's heart raced as they moved down a narrow hallway. The explosion had done its job, but it had also alerted the Scifi to their presence. The command center was in ruins, but the battle was now a race to escape before the alien forces could recover. "Let's move, people," Alex barked, pushing forward. The team followed without hesitation, their feet pounding on the metal floor, their weapons ready. Rachel led the charge, always the fastest, while Trent and Lisa kept watch for any sign of reinforcements. Every corner was a potential ambush. The Scifi were getting their bearings quickly. The team's advantage of surprise was fading fast. "There's a hatch ahead," Rachel called out, pointing toward a steel door at the end of the hallway. "If we can make it to that, we can get back to the shuttle." Alex nodded, knowing it was their best shot, but as they sprinted toward the hatch, a loud bang echoed from behind them. The Scifi were closing in. "Move," Alex shouted, his voice firm, filled with urgency. They were too close to fail now. Rachel reached the hatch first, slamming her shoulder against it to pry it open. The team followed closely, diving through the door into a smaller, dimly lit compartment. They had no choice but to continue through the ship, relying on their knowledge of the old ways. The Exetheri had the numbers, but they didn't know this ship like Alex's team did. The humans knew how to use their surroundings to their advantage. Alex stopped, taking a moment to breathe. They had made it to a safe area, for now, but there was no time to relax. He turned to his team, their faces tired but determined. "We've done it," Alex said, catching his breath. "We've crippled their command center. The Exetheri are reeling from it." Lisa wiped the sweat from her forehead. "But this won't be enough. They'll retaliate soon. We've made a powerful enemy, and now we've got to finish what we started." Alex nodded in agreement. "We need to get back to Earth. We've shown them we can hurt them, but now it's time to push the advantage. We need to organize a counterattack, while the Exetheri are still distracted." Trent, ever the optimist, cracked a grin. "If they think we're going to roll over, they've got another thing coming." But even as he said it, Alex felt the weight of what they had just done. The Exetheri were a dangerous enemy, and while they had won this battle, the war was far from over. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Earth had been caught unprepared, but humanity had shown that it could rise above the odds. But the hardest part was still ahead. They had disrupted the Exetheri command, but now they had to fight back against an enemy that was more ruthless than anything humanity had faced before. "We fight with everything we have," Alex said, his voice steady. "We will make sure the galaxy remembers humanity, not as obsolete, but as the force that changed the rules of war." The escape from the Exetheri battleship wasn't as smooth as Alex had hoped. The ship, now in chaos, seemed to be on the verge of total collapse, but the Exetheri were not easily defeated. Their response was swift, and Alex knew that the longer they stayed inside the enemy vessel, the more likely they were to be cornered. "Stay close," Alex ordered, his voice calm but urgent. The team moved in tight formation, weapons drawn, eyes constantly scanning for any sign of danger. The halls were dark, the flashing emergency lights casting long shadows. The hum of alien machinery was now a low, constant growl. The sound of distant footsteps made Alex's senses heighten. The Exetheri were regrouping, and they were getting closer. But Alex's team was almost out of time. As they neared the main docking bay, where their shuttle waited, the door suddenly opened, revealing a group of Exetheri soldiers. Their sleek armor and glowing eyes focused directly on them. The aliens' weapons hummed with deadly energy, and Alex's heart skipped a beat. But there was no turning back now. "Get ready," Alex shouted, and without a second thought, Rachel, Trent, and Lisa opened fire. The first few shots landed true, but the Exetheri soldiers retaliated immediately, returning fire with precision. The air filled with the sound of gunfire and the smell of burning ozone. The battle was fast and furious. Rachel darted forward, using the cover of a damaged wall to flank the enemy. Trent, with his heavy weapon, provided suppressive fire while Alex and Lisa moved to the side, trying to cut off the Exetheri's retreat. They had trained for moments like this, quick, decisive, and aggressive. The Exetheri were powerful, but they lacked the human instinct to adapt on the fly. They were soldiers following orders, whereas Alex's team had years of experience, countless battles, and the drive to fight for their world. After what seemed like an eternity, the last of the Exetheri soldiers fell, and the hallway fell silent. The team was breathing hard, covered in sweat and grime, but they had won again. "We're almost there," Lisa said, her voice steady but strained. She glanced toward the shuttle at the end of the hallway. But Alex wasn't so sure. The Exetheri were relentless, and they weren't going to give up. As they reached the shuttle bay, Alex's heart sank. The shuttle was still there, but it wasn't unguarded. A massive Exetheri war machine, twice the size of a regular soldier, stood between them and their escape. Its dark armor was almost impenetrable, and its weapons looked powerful enough to tear the shuttle apart in seconds. Alex cursed under his breath. We're not going to make it out of here without a fight. Trent grinned. Since when has that stopped us? Alex nodded, his mind already working on a plan. They didn't have the firepower to go toe-to-toe with the war machine, but they had something that Scifi didn't: human ingenuity. Lisa, Rachel, cover me, Alex said. Trent, you're with me. We're going to disable its weapons. With no time to waste, Alex and Trent sprinted forward, ducking and weaving between cover. The war machine's guns tracked their movements, but it was slow to react. The Scifi relied on brute force, not speed. Trent fired a few quick bursts, distracting the machine as Alex reached a console on the side of the ship. He hacked into the system, his fingers moving quickly. A loud beep rang through the air as the war machine's weapons powered down. Now, Alex shouted. Rachel and Lisa opened fire, their shots landing in critical spots on the war machine's legs. With a roar, the machine staggered and collapsed. The path to the shuttle was clear. They didn't waste another second. They rushed to the shuttle, piling inside and firing up the engines. The shuttle's engines roared to life, lifting off just as the Scifi forces began to regroup. As they flew away from the alien ship, Alex looked out the window at the burning vessel behind them. It had been a hard-fought victory, but this was just one battle in a long war. They had made their mark. The Scifi knew humanity wasn't finished, and they had proven that the old ways, human tactics, bravery, and resilience, were far from obsolete. Alex leaned back in his seat, feeling a small sense of relief, but his mind never stopped. The fight was far from over. The shuttle shot through the sky, its engines humming as it blasted away from the wreckage of the Scifi battleship. Alex Mercer sat in the cockpit, his hand steady on the controls, his mind racing. They had made it out alive, but that didn't mean they were safe. Behind them, the Scifi fleet was regrouping, and they wouldn't give up easily. They had already suffered significant damage, but the alien forces were vast. The war was far from over, and Earth was still vulnerable. Alex knew they were just one small piece of the bigger puzzle. We've got a clean exit, Lisa said, her voice coming through the comms. No immediate signs of pursuit. For a brief moment, Alex allowed himself to relax. It had been a brutal fight, and for the first time in days, the weight on his shoulders felt lighter. But he knew better than to believe the danger had passed. They're coming, Trent said, his voice low. We can't outrun them forever. Alex glanced at the radar screen. The Scifi ships were closing in, but they were still a few minutes away. He gritted his teeth. Earth had already lost too much. They couldn't afford to waste time. The shuttle wasn't fast enough to outrun the Scifi's advanced fleet, and a full retreat would mean giving them time to regroup. That wasn't an option. We need to get back to Earth and warn the others, Alex said, his voice firm. But we're not leaving anyone behind. If we can hit them hard one more time, it might buy us some time. Rachel turned to him from the back of the shuttle. What are you thinking? We don't have enough ammo to take down an entire fleet. We don't need to take them all down. We just need to hit them where it hurts, Alex replied, a plan forming in his mind. He turned to Lisa. How long until we can get close enough to Earth's atmosphere? Lisa glanced at her instruments. We're almost there. A few more minutes, but it's risky. If we don't get the angle right, we could burn up on re-entry. Alex nodded, his decision made. We're going in. The team went quiet as they prepared for the next phase of their mission. Alex pulled the shuttle into a sharp dive, heading toward Earth's atmosphere. The ship shook as they entered the fiery layers of the atmosphere, heat rising as they descended. The Scifi were close, and he could feel the tension building inside the cockpit. They're getting closer, Rachel said, her voice tight. We need to make it to the ground soon. The shuttle's hull groaned under the stress of the descent, but Alex kept his eyes focused on the horizon. Just a little longer. They needed to get close enough to Earth to use the terrain to their advantage. The planet's natural defenses might be able to slow the Scifi fleet down, but only if they could force them to follow them into the atmosphere. "Hold on," Alex shouted as the shuttle broke through the clouds. Below them, the sprawling cities of Earth appeared, surrounded by the green of forests and blue of the oceans. For the first time in a long while, Alex felt a sense of connection to his home, the people they were fighting for. The shuttle swerved to avoid incoming fire from the Scifi ships that had followed them into the atmosphere. The sky above Earth was filled with explosions as the alien fleet tried to target their shuttle, but Alex's quick maneuvers kept them just out of reach. "Get ready," he called to the team. "We're going to hit them where it hurts." As the shuttle descended toward a remote military base on the outskirts of a city, Alex made a sharp turn, cutting the shuttle's engines. They had one shot at this. He aimed for a narrow canyon where the Scifi ships would have to follow them. The shuttle's descent was intense, the atmosphere ripping at the metal hull. But Alex focused, guiding them into the canyon with precision. They had to get the Scifi's attention and lead them into a trap. A quick strike from the base below could be their chance to deal some serious damage. "Now," Alex shouted as they reached the right position. He fired the shuttle's weapons at the approaching Scifi fleet, sending blasts of energy that struck the alien ships. The attack wasn't enough to take them down, but it was enough to draw their focus. The Scifi ships, now fully engaged, followed the shuttle into the canyon, exactly as Alex had planned. The narrow canyon walls created a perfect environment for Earth's defenses to strike. As the alien ships followed them, the ground below erupted in a burst of energy. Earth's weapons, hidden beneath the surface, came alive, firing with deadly precision. The Scifi were now caught in a trap. Alex's heart raced as explosions lit up the sky. The battle had just begun, but this time, humanity had the upper hand. The canyon echoed with the deafening roar of the explosions. Alex Mercer gripped the shuttle's controls as Earth's defense systems unleashed everything they had at the Scifi fleet. The alien ships, now caught in the narrow trap, were struggling to maneuver, their advanced technology unable to fully compensate for the environment. The humans had created an opening, and they weren't going to let it slip away. "Hold tight," Alex shouted over the comms. The shuttle bounced and jolted as the canyon's walls scraped against their hull. The shuttle's rear thrusters fired in short bursts to stabilize the craft, keeping it just ahead of the Scifi ships as they followed the humans' descent into the canyon. "More incoming," Rachel yelled, her voice tight with strain. She was tracking the enemy's movements from the back of the shuttle, her weapon ready. Alex's eyes never left the path ahead. He could see the brilliant flash of Earth's surface-to-air missiles exploding in the distance, targeting the alien ships. Earth was fighting back, but Alex knew that this was just the beginning. The Scifi fleet was vast, and even though they had a temporary advantage, there was still a long battle ahead. "Trent, Lisa, get ready," Alex ordered as they neared the bottom of the canyon. "We'll need to engage the moment we hit the ground." The shuttle screeched as it hit the canyon floor. The team didn't waste a second. They were already out of the shuttle, weapons raised, scanning for the Scifi. The shuttle's engines powered down with a loud whine, leaving only the crackle of distant explosions to fill the air. The Scifi ships, now limited by the canyon size, hovered above them, firing down in short bursts. The air was thick with the sounds of combat, and the ground shook with every explosion. But Alex's team was ready. They had trained for this. "Move," Alex shouted, leading the charge as they ran towards a nearby series of cliffs. They would need to take out the enemy ships one by one. Alex's plan was simple: divide and conquer. Lisa and Trent split off to one side, using the canyon's natural cover to get closer to the Scifi ships. Rachel stayed with Alex, providing covering fire. She fired her weapon in quick, controlled bursts, striking the alien ships where they were most vulnerable. It wasn't much, but every shot counted. "Target locked," Lisa's voice crackled over the comms. I've got one of their engines. Should be enough to slow them down. Alex's heart raced as he looked up at the ships above them. The Scifi were tough, but they weren't invincible. If they could break through their shields, they might just stand a chance. Let's give them a welcome they won't forget, Alex said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Trent, ever the strategist, had positioned himself at the perfect angle. He fired a powerful shot from his heavy weapon. The beam struck one of the Scifi ships, piercing its shield and causing an explosion that sent debris flying in all directions. The ship dropped lower, its engine sputtering. Direct hit, Trent yelled triumphantly. But there was no time to celebrate. More Scifi ships were descending, closing in on their position. Alex didn't wait for the enemy to make the first move. Move back to cover, he commanded. They dashed for a series of rocks ahead, using them as shields. The Scifi returned fire, their weapons cutting through the air like a storm. But Alex and his team were quick, darting from cover to cover, always staying one step ahead. The team had successfully taken down 2 of the enemy ships, but the battle was far from over. The canyon walls were filled with the sound of the Scifi's relentless fire, but Alex could feel a shift. The tide was beginning to turn. We're not done yet, Lisa said, scanning the sky. We still have more ships incoming. Alex nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. Then we fight until there's nothing left. Despite the danger, Alex couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. They had just done what no one thought possible. They had taken the fight to the Scifi, right in their own backyard. Humanity wasn't going to roll over. Earth wasn't going to fall without a fight. Alex looked at his team, each of them focused, determined. They had made their mark. This wasn't just a battle. It was the beginning of humanity's fight for survival. The war had just begun, and Alex knew one thing for sure. They weren't going to lose. The battle in the canyon had been intense. Earth's defenses had made a significant impact on the Scifi fleet, but the war was far from over. Alex Mercer's team had fought bravely, taking down several ships, but the alien forces weren't backing down. They were relentless, regrouping faster than anyone could have anticipated. Alex stood on the edge of the canyon, his eyes scanning the horizon. The air was thick with smoke from the ongoing explosions. Earth had put up a fight, but the Scifi were regrouping, and it wouldn't be long before they launched their counterattack. We've done some damage, Rachel said, catching her breath. She was scanning the skies for signs of the enemy. But it's not enough. They'll come for us, and they'll come hard. Alex nodded grimly. He knew that Scifi would not let this defeat go unpunished. They were an empire, and they had the resources to strike back with force. Earth's victory today might have slowed them down, but it wasn't the end of the fight. They'll send reinforcements, Trent said, glancing at the radar. We've got to move fast. Not yet, Alex replied, his voice steady. We can't run. Not while Earth still needs us. He turned to the team. We're going to hit them again. We know they're still out there, recovering. If we strike hard enough, we might just take down their command structure and force them to pull back. Lisa was already checking her weapon, adjusting it for the next battle. We're all in, Alex. What's the plan? We hit them where they least expect it, Alex said, a spark of determination in his eyes. We know their weaknesses now. Their ships aren't invincible. We'll use everything we've learned. They had already disabled 2 Scifi ships, but that was just the beginning. Alex had a new plan, one that would target the core of the enemy's fleet, their command ship. If they could take it out, the rest of the Scifi ships might fall apart. Rachel, Trent, you'll provide cover from the canyon ridge. Lisa and I will go in, get close to their command ship, and plant explosives. Alex explained. We don't have much time before they regroup, so we move fast. Rachel nodded, already positioning herself in a hidden spot above the canyon. Got it. Just make sure you don't get yourselves killed down there. Alex smiled slightly. We'll be fine." The team split off into their respective positions, each of them moving with purpose. The Exetheri had a massive command ship orbiting the canyon, their main base of operations for this part of the war. It was heavily guarded, but Alex knew the terrain better than the enemy. They had one shot at this. As Alex and Lisa made their way toward the command ship, they could hear the distant hum of alien engines. The Exetheri were preparing for their counterattack. Their fleet was getting closer, but Alex wasn't going to wait for them to strike first. This was their moment. "Stay close, Lisa," Alex said, signaling for her to follow. They moved through the rocky terrain, avoiding the open ground where the Exetheri could easily spot them. The command ship loomed in the distance, its dark shape visible against the sky. "We need to be quick," Lisa said, looking nervously at the approaching ships. Alex nodded. "We plant the charges, get out, and let Earth's defenses finish the job. No second chances." They reached the base of the command ship, its massive engines glowing. The Exetheri had made it their stronghold, but it was vulnerable. The explosives they carried were their ticket to crippling the entire operation. "Ready?" Alex asked, his hand on the detonator. Lisa gave him a nod. "Let's do this." Together, they placed the explosives on key structural points of the command ship, making sure they would do the most damage. Once they were in position, Alex gave Lisa one last look. "Time to go," he said. They ran, moving as fast as they could, the countdown ticking in their ears. But as they reached the edge of the canyon, they heard the unmistakable sound of alien ships approaching. The Exetheri have found them. "This is it," Alex said, his voice low. "Move, now." They sprinted toward the shuttle, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Behind them, the command ship began to glow brighter as the explosives they had planted were set to detonate. The countdown was nearing its end. "Almost there," Lisa shouted. But just as they were about to reach the shuttle, the ground shook beneath their feet. The explosion was louder than anything Alex had ever heard, and for a moment, the world went silent. The Exetheri command ship had been destroyed. "Mission accomplished," Alex said, breathing heavily. But he didn't have time to feel relief. The fight was far from over, and the Exetheri wouldn't stop until Earth was conquered. The air was thick with dust and the distant echoes of explosions. Alex Mercer's heart raced as the shockwave from the destruction of the Exetheri command ship rocked the ground beneath them. It had been a huge victory, but the battle was far from over. As the dust settled, Alex could see the remaining Exetheri ships retreating, but they wouldn't leave without a fight. "That was too close," Lisa said, her voice shaky from the adrenaline. She looked up at the sky where the dark shapes of the Exetheri fleet loomed. "They're not going to take this loss lying down." Alex scanned the sky. The Exetheri forces were regrouping, but they were no longer the well-organized, unstoppable force they once were. Their command ship had been destroyed, and with it, the heart of their operation on Earth. This was their moment, their chance to turn the tide in the war. "We've got one shot at this," Alex said, his voice low and focused. "We need to hit them hard, while they're still disorganized. If we don't, they'll rebuild, and this war will drag on longer than we can afford." Rachel's voice crackled through the comms. "You've got a plan, right?" Alex nodded, more to himself than to anyone else. "We've got Earth's defense systems still working. If we can get to the command center in the heart of the base, we can link up with the military's main communications network. From there, we can launch a final assault. We'll use everything we have left." Lisa looked at him, determination in her eyes. "We're all in, Alex. Let's finish this." The team gathered, moving swiftly as they prepared for the next stage of their mission. The shuttle was ready for takeoff, but this time, they wouldn't be running. This was a counterattack, a strike to end the war once and for all. If they succeeded, the Exetheri would have no choice but to retreat. But failure meant Earth would fall. Alex could feel the weight of the decision on his shoulders. But there was no turning back now. "Let's move," Alex ordered. The shuttle's engines roared to life as they took off, flying toward the military base where the final battle would take place. The skies were filled with the wreckage of the battle they had just fought, and the remaining Scifi ships were closing in. They had no time to waste. As they approached the base, Alex's heart pounded in his chest. The Scifi were coming for them. But this time, humanity had the upper hand. They knew their terrain. They knew their weaknesses. And more importantly, they knew how to fight back. "We're almost there," Trent said, checking the readouts on his monitor. "The Scifi ships are almost in range." "Hold on," Alex said, gripping the controls tightly. "We do this fast. We do this right." They hit the base's atmosphere, plunging toward the command center. Below them, the final line of Earth's defenses was waiting, and Alex knew they had to hold the Scifi off long enough to complete their strike. The shuttle's engines screamed as they cut through the air, dodging fire from the incoming Scifi ships. A few blasts hit the shuttle, shaking them all in their seats, but Alex refused to back down. "Now," Alex shouted, and the team deployed. The shuttle's doors opened, and they leaped into action, taking cover as they rushed toward the base's main structure. The Scifi were everywhere. Their forces were regrouping for one final push, but they had underestimated humanity's will to survive. Alex and his team fought their way through the enemy lines, pushing forward, determined to reach the command center. The air was thick with smoke, and the ground shook with each explosion. But they didn't stop. They'd reached the control center, a massive structure at the heart of the base. Alex and Lisa planted the last of the explosives, while Trent and Rachel provided cover. Time was running out. The Scifi were closing in on them, but they had no choice but to finish the mission. "Charges are set," Alex said, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. "We're done here. Let's get out," Lisa shouted, and they made a break for the shuttle. The countdown on the explosives was ticking faster than Alex liked, but there was no turning back. The shuttle lifted off just as the base erupted in a brilliant explosion, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The Scifi ships were thrown off course, their coordination completely shattered. Looking down at the devastation below, Alex allowed himself a rare moment of relief. The fight had cost them everything, but they had done it. They had given humanity a fighting chance. As they flew back toward Earth's atmosphere, Alex's team watched the retreating Scifi ships.